What's going on, guys? This is Lior and welcome back to my channel. Now, you probably remember this townhouse project from some of my previous videos. I'm going to give you guys a status update of where we're at, and then I'm going to talk about some of the key differentiating factors that we've really thought about in terms of making this final product stand out versus the competition, right? So it features, discussions on design details, actual details that we put in during the permitting phase that have made a big difference. So I'll go through these details to really explain our thought process of what makes our finished product stand out and how you can apply that to your projects, investments, rentals, whatever it might be as well. So with that, let's get at it. All right, so welcome to inside the townhomes. As you can see, we have our board up. We're gonna be plastering shortly as well, and then we're right onto the finish. So I thought it'd be a good time to really talk about how we're differentiating some of our finish in terms of design, feel, so that you guys understand how we think about our projects, right? So first, this is the kitchen, and one of the things we've done with the kitchen is we put in our order with our custom cabinet vendor. And one of the things we thought about and we think through is a lot of the competition typically in this price point, they don't typically do custom cabinetry. You'll see a lot of like shaker cabinet packages, maybe some skinny shaker here and there, but typically you see a lot of competing product have shaker. We use custom slab cabinets. They're usually dual toned, right? So we don't do like a white kitchen because it just doesn't bring, it doesn't have that same luxurious design feel. So it's a dual tone. The lower cabinets have like a wood tone to them. So they're gonna look a lot sleeker. And not only is it the cabinetry, it's the appliances, right? A lot of competition typically in the low $1 million townhouse and condo markets typically use appliances like stainless steel GE appliances or an LG package or whatever it might be. We're actually using a Fisher & Paykel appliance package. It's going to be paneled, so that means the fridge is going to have a matching panel that matches the rest of the cabinetry. We also kind of have an elevated design where I call the dual pillar, where one side is going to have a tall stand-up pantry going all the way to the ceiling, and the other side is going to have your fridge, your fridge that's paneled, also with a cabinet all the way to the top. So it's going to look like kind of like a dual panel with an alcove in between, right? So between the appliance package, the actual cabinetry, and the actual design that we worked through with our cabinet vendor that we brought on site while we were doing all this rough, that's gonna create a very elevated design that's gonna make this project stand out. And of course, I'll video this once we actually do the install, so you'll see how that looks once it's finished. Now, in addition to the cabinetry, one of the things too that we're elevating here is the tile package, right? And a lot of the competition in this price point, generally they use, I would say, cheaper tile, right? I mean, a lot of the tile packages that I see on competing listings, they might have tile that's kind of in the $2 to $4 range, $2 to $4 per square foot range, right? So it might be more like Floor and Decor kind of grade. And it's typically very simple, right? Like typical white subways, or just, very just straightforward finishes. And as we start our tile prep in one of the bathrooms here, you can see our prep is underway. One of the things we take a lot of attention to detail to is the exact tile package we use. We do use an elevated tile packages in our finishes. Yeah, just like the cabinetry and appliances, yes, it's going to cost a little bit more, of course, right? A Fisher & Paykel appliance package is going to cost more, and a higher end tile package is going to cost a little bit more. But to me, that incremental cost in terms of delivering such a much more luxurious feeling product, I think has a huge return on investment, right? It's just a huge return because you notice that right away. You do notice that right away, and I do think buyers feel that as soon as they walk in. Another feature that we kind of really think about that's actually decided at the very start of the project is the height of the lower levels. So in here, now that the walls are up, you can actually kind of get a sense of how tall these ceilings are. Our finish height is about 9 feet for the lower level, which feels incredible, right? Usually in these lower level spaces, you're gonna get maybe mid 7s in terms of height, maybe 8 feet if you're lucky. But having that extra foot makes the space feel like it's a true living space, not just kind of an afterthought in the basement that you just tucked in there, just to cram some square footage. It really feels nice. Now that comes with a price, right? Obviously we have to pour taller foundation walls. So there's additional cost incurred in the concrete, in the labor. So that does come with a price. But again, the feeling of what we've created, especially now that walls are up, you can kind of tell, it really feels like a true living space. And not only that, but spending more money, for example, on an egress window, even when this isn't necessarily a bedroom, right? Like typically you'd only do this if you have a bedroom that you needed to meet a egress code for. But just having this window here with the window well, right, with getting a ton of light into your custom, it's gonna be our custom wet bar over here for this unit. Having that extra light, having a full-size window, bringing in more light, again, I think just adds more of a grand feel to this space, right? It's not an afterthought. It's a truly dedicated living space. You've got great feel to it. You don't feel crammed like, your significant other kicked you down into the corner, right? It feels like a real living space, which translates into a better product, better buyer feel, and ultimately a better sales price too. And then finally, my kind of last category of building materials and other smaller design features that I want to highlight. So for example, you'll notice behind me, our windows here, an exterior door package is all Pella. It's a much higher end window that is more expensive than a typical package that a lot of competing product might use, like Andersen windows is pretty typical. We definitely spend a little bit more money, but again, the Pella is a much nicer window. Its functionality is obviously superior. It's got better brand recognition, and we want to be using the best building materials in our project. Even if we're eating a little bit more cost on them, I think the return on just the finished product is massive. And then some other final details I want to point out for you guys. These are smaller, not necessarily something like a building material, but small design features that we think of. So for example, on our main staircase right here, you'll see we've got wires popping on every tread. That's because we're going to have underlighting on each stair tread in these units. And this is, it's not necessarily a super expensive thing to do. Obviously, the electrician is going to charge a little bit more because they have to wire all these treads in. There's going to be some incurred cost on the finished carpentry, right? Because when we're doing underlighting on the stairs, we actually have to use a thicker tread on the stairs in order to support the channel coming in. So there's going to be incurred cost on the labor from the finished carpenter, right? Because they have to come in, do a thicker tread, make sure all the heights still match, put in the channel underneath it. So it is a little bit more of a labor work, but the finished product, as you might have seen from some of my other projects, again, I just think it adds such an intentional, luxurious design to it, right? Like being able to have a lit up stairway. That means if you're coming home at night, whether you're coming down from sleeping or you're coming home late and you just turn on these stairs, you don't have to turn on the entire house lights. You can just turn on your stairs. It's such an elegant feature. And again, for not a ton more money, but a lot more, but some extra money, some extra coordination, it really delivers an awesome result. And finally, some few other details I want to point out, particularly in the primary ensuite. So 2 details here. So we're about to start, our tile guy's about to start working on this. First, in our primary ensuite, what we almost always do, radiant floor. So we just ordered the kit where they're going to put in the heated floor material. It's a nice feature to have, especially in the cold days of Boston, right? You can turn up the heat. Your feet will feel a lot better coming out of the shower. So it's just, again, a small feature. Adds obviously some labor costs, some material costs, but I just think it elevates the product so much. And then finally too, you can see the kind of lip we have here between the main bathroom floor to the shower. And again, this is part of the design we've talked in the past, is this is for a curbless shower. So as opposed to a regular shower that will have a curb coming, dividing the shower versus the rest of the bathroom floor, this will be a seamless, smooth floor at the finished product. The glass is going to be basically hitting right on the ground, and there won't be any curb. It's just going to be a perfectly flush. Again, it's a much more elevated look. It takes a little bit more coordination with the framing. It takes more coordination with your tile guys. Yes, it costs a little bit more money, but the finished product is gonna look significantly better. So those are some of the finished design details that we work on, we think about through our projects. Again, a lot of these design details come with some extra cost. A lot of them not a ton more cost. They just need to be thought through, properly coordinated with our general contractor, with all the subcontractors. But the finish feeling of the product, I think all of these little features just add so much to the end product. I think it does make these end units stand out against the competition. It feels like these are truly intentional, luxurious builds, not just luxury because it's new construction, because it's actually luxurious, right? There's a lot of intentional detail, a lot of detail you will not see in your apartment building luxury apartment building that you might be renting from and moving here to buy. So all of these little items together, I think really demonstrate just thinking through your build, putting in all of these details that people, ultimately your buyers will appreciate, and from a business perspective will pay more for. So hopefully that's helpful, guys. If you have any questions, throw your comments below.